Hello, folks. Welcome to your very first tin whistle lesson. The tin whistle, also known as the penny whistle. There's one here. The fadog. Fadog is the Irish for whistle. This is the most common. This is the instrument that children in Ireland are given as their first instrument when they go to school. Kids generally pick it up at the age of maybe 7 or 8, maybe a bit older. And it can sound quite brash and quite shrill in the beginning, but when, like any instrument, when the student puts a bit of practice in and learns how to approach it and can play with dynamics and volume, and just basically builds on the technique that they know, it can sound very sweet. I am not by any manner or means a professional tin whistle player, but I find it a very interesting instrument, and it's an instrument that anybody can pick up and start knocking a tune out of in the first week, and that's really fun. And in terms of an investment, I go into a music shop and I buy a set of strings for my guitar. I might, if I'm gigging very, very often, I might change a set of strings every 4 or 6 weeks. A set of strings could cost me €20. This tin whistle cost me €3.99 in a big bargain store. So for $3.99 you have a musical instrument. They come in all different shapes and sizes. This is a brass one with the plastic fipple. The fipple is the piece of the bit you blow into up at the top. The whistle basically works by blowing air into this little tiny hole, and that wind that you blow through this fipple gets split by a blade, which is actually the fipple itself, is this blade. Half the air escapes out of this window, and the other half of the wind that you blow through goes down the tube. And depending on where you put your fingers, you get a different pitch. So if I was to play with all the holes open, there are 6 holes in a tin whistle. Okay, this is our very first lesson, so I have to remember to be as plain and simple as I can possibly be. So brass tube, plastic fipple, you blow in this end. You've got 6 holes, and you can play 2 octaves. 2 octaves. Okay, so music theory. So you've got, let me get a nicer whistle here. You've got these notes on the tin whistle. You can also play a C natural, which is this one. So you've got a few notes. You cannot play them all. It's not like a piano where you've got all of the white and black keys, from left to right, from low to high, every little note that you might want in Western music at your disposal. On a whistle, you are more limited, a bit like a harmonica too, if you're aware of those, or a mouth harp. So it's called a diatonic instrument as opposed to chromatic. Chroma is, I believe, a Latin word that means colour, and so you've got all the colours of the rainbow on a piano. You've only got a few colours on this, but the limitations of this instrument make it easier to play, especially in certain keys. And so without getting too heavy, you can basically play do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do on this in 2 locations. So in 2 keys, and that just allows you to have a bit of fun with the major scale or the minor scale, the relative minor. So very first tune. Let me spend a little bit more time on discussing these 6 holes. So a recorder is another instrument that's similar to this, but it's got a lot more holes on the front and it's got a hole on the back, a bit like the bagpipes. Tin whistle is so simple, 6 holes. That's all you've got to worry about. And by blowing harder, you get up to the higher notes. Let me demonstrate that. So this note is called a G. We'll get back to that. So if I blow lightly, we have that note. If I blow a little bit harder, I play the same note just higher up. So you've got 6 holes. If you cover all of the holes, you get the note that the whistle is named after. So music notation and you know, notes in music, the pitches are named after letters of the alphabet. I have another video if you want to go find that on, just 101 of music theory. But basically, you know, if this is the first video you've come across, if you cover all of the holes in the tin whistle and you blow lightly, you get a D. And it actually has the letter D embossed or printed there on the fipple to let you know that this is in the key of D. With that, so if you've got your D, the first degree of the D scale, second degree is E, third degree is F sharp, fourth degree is G, fifth degree is A, sixth degree, the minor 6, is B. You've got C sharp as the 7th, and that's with all of the holes open. And then to get to the high D, you basically blow twice as hard. You blow a little bit harder, and the difference between the low D, so this one, and the high D, you just lift this finger up so that there's no interference pattern within the whistle when you blow harder. And that's the only note that is played differently on the low set of notes compared to the high. So my fingers, when I do this little thing, same technique in terms of what's happening with my hands as playing lighter, blowing lighter. The only note that's different is that D. So, what have you got so far? You've got 2 different pressure levels that you can use to get different notes out of the whistle. One is light, and one is a bit harder. Yeah. You've got D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and high D. With that, we can play Mary Had a Little Lamb in the key of G that time. So you can play in the key of G too. So we can start on the G instead of starting on the D, and we can climb up in the same way, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, up to the high G. Let's do that together. There's one difference though. There's one note in there that in the scale of G that is not in the key of D, and that is C natural. C natural is basically the white key on the piano, as opposed to the C sharp key, which is a black key. Again, it's more theoretical, but in terms of just approaching this instrument and just playing something, you have to know that the C natural is played like that. So that's the 3rd degree fourth degree chord. C natural is the fourth of the key of G. So this is how you play G major scale. D major scale. If you spend the first day or two, or week, 2 weeks, however long it takes to learn how to play this cleanly, without any squeaks or squawks or buzzes or accidental high notes, if that's all you focus on is just the technique of playing each of those notes cleanly on command, it will make everything else that comes after that, woodshedding, as the Americans say, just getting knuckling down on the task at hand, getting those notes clean. Is the best thing you could possibly do. If you got kids, or if you're a kid yourself and you want to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, you just start with them all closed, and this is the key of D, and we go up to the A. Now you're playing Mozart. So that's a whistle in the key of D. This guy is another whistle, right? But this is in the key of C. So it's got a different starting point, essentially, and all of the notes from that starting point are relative to that starting point, right? So the intervals in terms of music theory, the distances between the frequencies from the low, covering all 6 holes, to the high, it's the same technique. And let me demonstrate that. So again, this is the D, and this is a C. Now I can play a D on the C whistle, and that's C D. It's the second degree of that scale. So that's how I play the same note as the one on that whistle. C whistle, really cool. So you play it the same way. So, tin whistle, really cool thing, right? This is a whistle, a Clark whistle with a really agricultural or industrial looking, or should I say, agricultural looking fipple. It's not exactly high tech or high science compared to this low whistle here. Now this is another animal altogether again, right? So this is, again, it's got 6 holes. It's played in terms of covering what holes when. It's played exactly the same as a high whistle, the standard tin whistle. But as you can imagine, it's a much lower note. This is a D low whistle, a low whistle in the key of D. So this whistle and the first whistle that I showed you, they're both D. But the difference is the high D on this whistle is the same frequency, same note as the low D on this one. So basically you've got a much lower range but the same range. So low D. Watch my climb. another thing, you need to clean your whistles. They get clogged with your saliva and with your spit, and you need to eradicate whatever residual moisture is up in between the hole that you blow through and the window, the fipple, yeah? So you need to, get rid of all of that spit, and the best way to do that is to cover the fipple on the tin whistle, cover the window with your finger, and then just blow really hard. It won't make a sound if the air can't be cut by the fipple, and you're impeding the air from escaping through that window by covering the window. So that, if you only get a piece of tissue paper and just catch the spit, there's not much in these. Sometimes it just needs to it doesn't, you don't need to eradicate it from the whistle, it just needs to settle in a different place within the whistle. So the low D is such a beautiful tone, but you got to learn how to play the small whistle first. Much lower, much more resonant. But there are things that this can do that can't do. Obviously, play low notes. But there are things this can do. It's a lot more nimble. You can play quicker passages on this. It doesn't take as much wind either. You don't become breathless as quickly on this, especially when you're playing quick tunes where you haven't got a chance to breathe. But guys, $3.99. This is a much nicer one. But it was €15. It's not breaking the bank. You can hear it needed to be cleared there. And then this is a very special whistle that a friend gave to me as a gift. And it's a handmade whistle. And it's a very pretty whistle. It's a lot heavier. It's more, you can tell it's a lot more professional. It's got a brass fipple, a Killarney whistle, and it's got a nickel coated brass tube. And you've got a whistle, Go out and buy yourself a tin whistle.